Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. So today we're diving into a short but honestly incredibly profound piece of text simply called Categorizing. It's one of those texts that really forces us to hold up a mirror and look at a deeply ingrained human habit. And it's something we apply not just to the natural world, but, far more dangerously, to our own kids. We're going to jump right into how society organizes human value and the invisible, everyday toll it takes. It's a fascinating, albeit kind of heavy subject, so let's just get right into it.
Think back for a second. Which box were you put in when you were a child? Seriously, take a moment and really think about it. Were you labeled the smart one? Maybe the average one? The kid who needed improvement? The athlete? The troublemaker? The text we're looking at today operates on the premise that way before we even figure out who we actually are, we're already placed into these neatly defined little containers by the world around us. Just asking yourself that question, you can probably already feel the weight of what we're about to unpack. You lived through it. We all did.
You see, humankind has this absolute obsession with categorizing things. I mean, we love it. Frankly, if humans find two rocks on the ground, we'll probably label one of them the superior rock. We start with the biological stuff, which makes sense, right? Mammals, birds, insects, reptiles. We just want to make sense of the natural world. But then, and the text points this out perfectly, it bleeds into the human condition. We categorize by race, white, brown, black, by economic status, rich, middle class, poor, even by looks, good-looking, average, not so good-looking. And then, absolutely crucially for our discussion today, we categorize by performance, the good student, the average student, the bad student. Basically, we take a tool meant for organizing animals and we use it to measure human worth.
So the key takeaway here is that this isn't just some passive observation. No, it's a highly active, deeply ingrained human habit. We are the ones designing the boxes. We take the infinite, beautiful complexity of a growing kid and just squish it down into a standardized label, also society can process them easier. The text actually suggests that this urge to categorize isn't just some quirky psychological trait. It is literally the architecture of how we interact with the world, and most importantly, how we interact with the next generation.
Now, how exactly do these boxes get enforced? Well, the text introduces us to what it calls the system. It explicitly points out that systems are designed to enforce these categories, and they box a child in super early on. But here is the truly alarming part. Who actually makes up this system? We aren't talking about some faceless government bureaucracy here. The text identifies the enforcers as parents, relatives, teachers, friends. It's the invisible, everyday structures built by the exact people who are supposed to nurture, protect, and love that child. The folks closest to the child are actually the ones holding the tape and the marker, sealing the box shut.
Let's slow down for just a second, because this is where the source material takes a deeply serious turn. Once a child is stuffed inside one of these boxes, what actually happens to them? The text is crystal clear on this. These systems take a huge toll on the child, and it uses this very specific chilling phrase, an unseen one. Because the labels themselves are invisible, the damage is invisible too. We don't see the structural cracks forming in a child's psyche right away. We just see the label. So let's look at exactly what the text says happens to kids stuck inside the three main categories: the top, the middle, and the bottom.
Let's start right at the top, the good students, the top performers. Now, you might think, hey, this is the best box to be in, right? But the text completely shatters that illusion. Notice the exact word the author uses here, struggling. Being at the top isn't some peaceful paradise. It is a place of relentless, quiet anxiety. The child learns pretty quickly that their value is entirely tied to maintaining that high status. Every single test, every interaction becomes a high-stakes battle just so they don't fall off the pedestal that their parents, teachers, and friends have built for them.
And that pressure, it only morphs and intensifies when we look at the middle tier, the average students. The text explains that kids in the middle are always trying to reach higher. They live in this perpetual state of not quite good enough. They're pressured and prodded to perform the same as those in the top tier. I mean, imagine being a kid and feeling like your natural state, your average everyday self, is somehow unacceptable. The system basically demands that you climb. It's a stressful, never-ending push placed on kids who really just want to exist, but instead find themselves stuck on this treadmill of relentless expectations.
And how exactly do the adults in the room justify all this pressure and prodding of the middle-tier kid? Well, the text makes a brilliant, somewhat ironic observation here. It says they do it in the garb of supporting. We take all our intense pressure and we reframe it as support. We tell ourselves, we're just helping them reach their full potential. But in reality, we're really just enforcing the rules of the categorization system. We wrap our own anxieties about their status in this comforting, acceptable disguise of parental or educational support.
And then we reach the bottom of the system, the bad students, the needs improvement kids, the lesser categories. The source text uses one incredibly heavy, agonizing word to describe their fate: shunned. Those in the lesser categories get shunned. They aren't just handed a lower grade on a report card, their very humanity is pushed right to the margins. They are ignored, alienated, or just treated as lost causes by the system. I really want that word to land for a second. To be a child seeking connection and validation, and to literally be shunned by the adults and peers around you simply because you don't fit perfectly into one of their productive boxes.
So what's the ultimate result of all this categorizing, the struggling, the prodding, the shunning? The text tells us that these systems induce specific behaviors in the child. And as it reveals, it's a mixed bag, but honestly, it's mostly a negative one. Now, the text does acknowledge that this system might induce some productive behaviors. Sure, maybe the fear of being shunned makes a kid study harder, or maybe the intense pressure creates a high achiever. But it explicitly states that it breeds a whole lot of limiting behaviors. Deep down in the child's psyche, these categories breed a fear of failure, chronic anxiety, a lack of self-worth, and a severe limitation on their ability to just authentically be themselves. At the end of the day, the cost of those few productive behaviors is simply way too high.
But hey, the source text doesn't just leave us sitting here in despair. It actually offers a pivot, a real way out of this trap. And it starts by completely shifting our focus. We're going to move away from the macro, uncontrollable systems of society and look at the microsphere of influence. We're talking about reclaiming control and creating a safe haven. As someone who loves focusing on actionable takeaways, this is definitely the part of the explainer where the text truly empowers us.
The author presents a really stark dichotomy here. On one hand, we have the external world. The text is pretty blunt about this. The external world is, quote, not much in control. You cannot stop society from labeling people. You just can't stop the world from having its rich and poor, its good students and bad students. But on the other hand, we have your home. The text declares that every parent has the ability to provide a home where the child is loved and cared for unconditionally. You have the absolute power to juxtapose the uncontrollable, labeling reality of the outside world with a completely controllable, loving sanctuary right inside your own living room.
So what does this sanctuary actually look like? Well, the text gives us the exact blueprint for what we can call the uncategorized home. First, it is built on unconditional love and care. Second, it's a place where the child is not categorized. You actively refuse to enforce the boxes that the outside world is constantly insisting upon. And third, it's a place where the child feels entirely safe just being exactly who they are. I mean, just let that sink in for a moment. Imagine a kid navigating this harsh, labeling world, but knowing that the absolute second they walk through their front door, all the labels just fall right off. They aren't the good student or the bad student anymore. They are simply safely themselves. That is how a child truly thrives.
The closing words of our source text leave us with this stark, direct challenge staring right back at us. This one thing can change many things for the child. Can you do it? Can you check your own instinct to categorize at the door? Can you resist that urge to prod your child in the garb of supporting? It asks you to take ultimate responsibility for the environment you are creating. It's a profoundly deep question that challenges the very core of how we raise the next generation. I want to leave you with that thought to ponder. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep seeking to understand.